Here today, I'm Sid Biswas.
And I'm used to Shamsi.
Yep. And you can actually see me this time, so this is what I look like.
Yeah, there's Sid right there.
Yeah. Yesterday was game three of the Spurs Heat series. Just to do a quick recap, the Spurs, they kind of blew out the Heat. They started the game with the record-breaking first half. They shot 75%, and then the Heat made a little bit of a run, but the Spurs held them off, and eventually they won in double digits. So, Yusuf, what happened in the first half?
So the first half, as you said, the Spurs shot 75%, which is crazy. No team shoots that percentage, especially against a good defensive team like Miami. And we knew the Spurs had the capability to obviously play really well offensively, but to shoot 75%, I mean, that was like some of the best basketball that I've ever seen. Just the way that they were passing and moving the ball. One of the big factors was Kawhi Leonard. He finally broke through in game three. Games one and two, he kind of got into foul trouble early defending LeBron, and he wasn't really a factor because he wasn't able to get in rhythm. But he was hitting his outside shot, and he was being really aggressive. There were a couple of threes that he had a hand in his face, and he was still hitting them. So I think Kawhi Leonard had a good first half for sure.
Just to put that in, there was a point in like late second half they put up a graphic and it said at that point the Spurs were shooting 19 for 21, and it was
It's
like
crazy.
Spurs 90% field goal, previous record 75%, and then eventually they missed some shots towards the end of the second quarter. But yeah, they were hitting everything. I, Kawhi Leonard was just like pulling up from threes. He's coming off a pick and just shooting jumpers. Usually, like when you think of Leonard, you think of like he can score off the fast break, he can drive to the rim, but like jump shooting doesn't like first come to your mind. But he was hitting everything. It was a great performance by him.
Right, and he wasn't hesitating. Like you saw on those 3-point shots, he wasn't pump faking. He wasn't. He was just so I think Popovich and the rest of his teammates were telling him to be aggressive because when he's aggressive, both attacking the rim and shooting, and it does help when you make your first couple of shots because that just ups your confidence. So that definitely helped. Plus, he was playing pretty good defense on LeBron,
Yeah,
and
I
and
think him making some shots probably gave him some more confidence. Like just overall, you could see that he was a different player. Like how he starts a game really dictates how he plays the rest of the game. Games one and two, he got early fouls, so he was just out of the game, and he didn't really wasn't able to do anything defensively or offensively. Yesterday he was on fire, and he just kept going.
yeah, and I think the other big factor, especially in the first half, was Danny Green. He kept getting all these steals. Like he kept forcing turnovers.
Danny Green, I didn't realize he was a defensive juggernaut. According to
Yeah, like he turned both into a defensive juggernaut, and usually he's just a three-point shooter, but he was taking the defenders. He was getting to the hoop,
yeah,
like
he
he
was
was taking them off the dribble.
that was really surprising. Like you see, I remember just watching him make this play. He drove left. I think it was on LeBron, and he put up this like little left-handed floater on baseline. I was like, was that Danny Green? Like what? Like why is he not just shooting a three? And he was just making all these like drives, and he was really just aggressive. And I think those two really stepped up. And in a game where like it wasn't like the big three for the Spurs, it was Danny Green and Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah, and that's what the Spurs do. They're such a deep team, and you're going to have different guys stepping up in different games. They don't have to rely on one or two players. I mean, you have a couple of Hall of Famers yet, and we're yeah, Danny Green's floater. It's like, have we ever seen the Danny Green floater before, or even like the Danny Green layup, like driving past defenders? So
Yeah,
like that was pretty surprising.
yeah. So the Spurs, they were on point. Let's move to the Heat. They kind of made a run in the third quarter. For a second, I thought, like, watching the whole first half, I was like, okay, Spurs are really on their game, but the Heat are going to make a run. Like, I
Right.
was like, I didn't think it would just end like that. I thought they were going to make a run. They came within 7 points in the third quarter, and I really think that was because they were being way more aggressive in the second half. They, like, it weren't that they were just running fast break, but they were, whenever they inbounded the ball, the ball like got to half court without even getting dribbled. Like all the inbound passes were long. They got the ball up the court really quickly. So I don't know. I think they just couldn't keep up with it, but they made a run. And for a second, I thought Miami had a chance to make it a close game.
Yeah, I think at one point it was a 9-point game, and they got pretty close. And part of that is also Spoelstra, like they were showing his halftime speech, and he was just preaching patience. And he was like, "Don't try to get the whole entire game back like in one moment. Like work your way back. Let's cut it down to half the lead through the third quarter, so we have a run." So part of that was like Spoelstra, and they have this kind of championship experience. They don't like at, at these pressure points, they don't easily fall. They keep going because they have that patience. I think part of that was Spoelstra for sure.
Yeah, that was. I mean, they made it close for a second, but the Spurs, they didn't. They're also an experienced team, so they didn't just be like, oh, the Heat are coming, and
Right.
so I was really impressed by the fact that they were making this run, and then Bellinelli hit this three to kind of calm it down a little bit. But the Spurs they just held on. They didn't have to. They didn't need to score like a ton of points. All they needed to do was just score enough to prevent the Heat from making a comeback. So I think they were good at just stalling the Heat a little bit. Um, so what are your thoughts on the big players in the series so far? LeBron James, Dwayne Wade.
I mean, I think James, he's been basically carrying the Heat. Game one, he was carrying them, and then obviously he went out with the cramps.
And then he got carried.
Huh?
And then
What?
he got carried.
And then he got carried off the court. So, so yeah, he was carrying them, and I think they were down two when he went out with the cramps. And at some point, he went back in, he made a layup, and then he cramped up for the rest of the game. But I think people underestimate his value, especially defensively, because he was keeping the Spurs had a ton of turnovers in that first game, and his defensive value, just the way he gets around the court, he can guard multiple guys. He was keeping them in the game, and I don't think it's a coincidence that when he went out, the Spurs like go on this huge run and they win by more than 10 points. I don't think that was a coincidence at all.
Yeah, that was like as he went out with like 3 minutes left, and they were like you said, like within a couple points, and then all of a sudden the Spurs are winning by 15. And,
Yeah.
You're right. I don't think people really give that give him enough credit for that, and you kind of saw that in game two where he had more of an offensive game. Like that's what you're like. Okay, this is LeBron. You're expecting him to carry the game offensively, and I think that's a very underrated part of his what he, it's not underrated. We all know LeBron's a great defender, but it's just like it's very important that he holds that team together defensively.
Yeah, even in game two, like we talked about in the earlier podcast, how like when LeBron passes it off, he gets criticism. Same thing happened in game two. He passed it off to Bosch for a baseline three, but this time Bosch made the shot, so you didn't hear any criticism anymore. You know? So I think LeBron, and even in the first half of game three, he was playing really well, or the first quarter, he hit a couple of big threes, and he's been hitting his jump shot, which is big because you can sag. You used to be able to sag off him defensively and force him to shoot jump shots. Now he's going to hurt you with jump shots too. So he's just really tough to defend.
It's not pretty, but it goes in.
Yeah, it's kind of like off balance and stuff. It's not a Ray Allen jumper, but it goes.
Yeah. And then, but the one thing I thought that kind of hurt them, like he did turn the ball over a lot. So did Dwayne Wade, and I think together they had 12 turnovers. And I don't think if they're going to have the ball in their hands that much, and you're responsible for so much of the Heat offense, you can't just turn it over because the Spurs are going to capitalize on those things. And that's something they need to clean up for the next game.
Yeah, and when you turn it over, you have to get back. I know Wade a couple of times when he turned it over, he's kind of complaining that he got fouled or he's not running back. And if you don't do that, the Spurs are going to hurt you. So if you're going to turn it over, at least make sure you get back. Because every single Spurs is going to be running back on offense. And you can't be complaining to the refs. You can't be doing any of that.
Yeah, and I think in general, that's one thing I noticed is the Heat, especially in game one, they don't always get back on D.
Right.
It's surprising because they're a championship team and you expect they would get back on D. And I think what the Spurs did to take advantage in game one was that they would get up so quickly and then do a quick pick and roll, or Parker would get past this guy and then there's no one in the paint to guard. And that's how Duncan went 9 for 10. Splitter had a good game, and they kind of adjusted to it in game two, the Heat. But then this game they kind of went back to I think they got a little, maybe they weren't as, I don't want to say they got complacent, but it's looked like it at least.
Yeah, I mean, I think they constantly have to be reminded, like, listen, we have to be playing at an A level, especially defensively, and getting back in transition, especially against a team like the Spurs. Because even in your half court offense, the Spurs are moving the ball from side to side. They're constantly setting down picks. Guys are getting coming off screens. Guys are making cuts. And if you're not defensively focused the entire time, if you're lagging at all, the Spurs are going to hurt you. So, I mean, it's easier said than done, but the Heat really have to keep their aggression defensively. And they have to go back to forcing turnovers.
That's like a kind of a characteristic of the Heat. They play in like third gear, and then all of a sudden they have stretches of.
Yeah.
And last game, first half, granted the Spurs were hitting a lot of shots, but I think the second half, Miami really, like, for a good stretch of it, they outplayed the Spurs. They just were in too much of a hole to make it back. So I think they really need to, most other teams they can beat without having to be like pedal like full throttle all the time. But the Spurs,
Right.
they're also a team like that. Not like that. The Spurs play in fifth gear all the time. Like, so that's kind of the criticism of the Spurs, is that when it comes time to, like, fourth quarter, game on the line, how, like, they can't go above what they're already doing because they're already playing at the highest level the Heat can. And I think that's like a really interesting contrast that's the definition of this series, really.
Yeah, and the Heat have shown this pattern before. It's game ones of series. They lose a lot of game ones of series, and then they have to come back from there. They have to be extra motivated from there and early quarters. I think the first three games, the Spurs have really dominated the first quarter. So it's like, for whatever reason, the Heat aren't coming out aggressive enough. And yeah, that's fine against a team like the Pacers, who are going to go on a slump offensively, and you have a chance to come back. And even the Heat had a chance to come back in this game. But when you allow 69 points or whatever it is in the first half, even if you play full throttle the rest of the way, you're not giving yourself much of an opportunity from there. So the Heat definitely have to come out. And, I think they will next game for sure.
Yeah. And the other thing that was different in what happened in Game 3 is Boris Diaw started. My man Boris Diaw.
Your man, Boris Diaw.
That guy, like, his passes are so beautiful. Like, he does his one pass where he, like, dribbles to the, like, he has some sort of drive to the basket, and then he's kind of stuck underneath the basket, and he, like, flips it over, and
Yeah.
it looks like he should be passing it to the baseline corner for a three, but then it goes to the guy on the elbow, and it's like this weird wraparound, like, long pass. It looks really difficult to do, but he makes it look easy. And, he's just, like, he just distributes the ball, and he's, like, kind of an second point guard on the court.
And part of that comes from knowing where your teammates are going to be. So even when you're not completely looking, even when you don't have a line of sight to them, like I think you're talking about that pass to Patty Mills, where he should have hit like either Bellinelli or Ginobili on the baseline, but he knows exactly where Patty Mills is going to be on the elbow. He doesn't even have to look; he just swings it around to them. So he's definitely been a big factor because he can pass and he can take advantage of whoever's defending him. If he has a big man defending him, he just stays on the baseline, and then you can get him an open three-point shot from there because the big man's not going to come out to him. Or if you have Rashard Lewis guarding him, we saw him post up Rashard Lewis a couple of times. He's just too strong for him.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you mentioned Rashard Lewis, which I think he is becoming the X factor for the Heat now.
Yeah.
And I think, like, that's one thing that the Heat did well in Game 2. Rashard Lewis played well in Game 3, but in Game 2, him and Chris Bosh were both hitting threes, and Splitter and Duncan weren't closing out on them well enough. And I think that's really the advantage that the Heat have that they need to exploit more. And I think it's good for them that Rashard Lewis is playing better. Now they just need what they need is their point guards Chalmers and Cole to play better. And I think I think that's what the Heat need to be able to win 4 games in the series.
Yeah, Mario Chalmers has been terrible. He's had a couple of open threes last game that they just needed him to hit to keep their momentum going, and he just bricks those threes. And when you're moving the ball around on offense and you're getting someone an open three, even Ray Allen has missed a couple of open threes. Like, you have to hit those shots because it kills your momentum. If you work really hard on an offensive possession, you get a guy a wide open three, and Chalmers just completely misses.
There's actually been, not last game, but through this series, both teams have missed open shots. The Spurs missed some in Game 2. They hit everything in Game 3. But it's kind of surprising to see that they have all this pretty offense. Like, that's one thing I really appreciate about this series is that every single play, every single possession, there's a set. They have a plan to do something. You know, the ball is moved around the court. It's not just like, okay, go one-on-one. And when it's going one-on-one, it's like LeBron go one-on-one, which is, you know, very efficient offense actually. So like it's really like nice to watch, but then it's frustrating when they don't hit the open 3-pointers. And I think that's something that, I don't know, is it nerves? I don't know what it is. Like,
Yeah, I don't know what it is either, but like sometimes that's what it's going to come down to. Who can make their open shots? Because you can play beautiful offense. If you don't make your open shots, that's it. So, I mean, like, and that's why, like you said, Rashard Lewis is a big factor. Surprisingly, he's had like more than 10 points in each of these first 3 games. So he has been a factor and he has hit a couple of threes. But with the way the Spurs play offense, for the Heat, if they get open threes, they have to knock them down because you know the Spurs are going to come down and make a shot at the other end.
Yeah, exactly. If they can't hit the 3, they have no advantage to that lineup.
And even Bosch has been hitting threes, so they need him because if he's going to be their center, then he's going to have to knock down those open threes. And that's what, I mean, we talked about this before. If the Spurs are going to play big, if you have Duncan or Splitter on the court, you have to take advantage of that offensively. And they have. Splitter has played surprisingly well. I mean, like, he doesn't have the prettiest, you know, hook shot or whatever, but he's been making them. He's been making good decisions, getting passes off. Yeah, the little hook he has. So, like, he's been playing well. I think that's a big factor because they need him as a release. Like, if he's going to be the only really big man on the court, he has to take advantage of Chris Bosh. I think he's done that more than the Heat big men like Chris Bosh have taken advantage on the other end.
Right. So what do you think are some adjustments both teams can make going forward? Let's start with the Spurs.
The Spurs, I mean, I think offensively they're doing everything right. I don't think they really have to make that many adjustments offensively. I think if their offense ever stalls, like any offense ever stalls, I think giving it to Tim Duncan down low, I think Jeff Van Gundy kept talking about this, is a good way just to stabilize the offense because he has a post game, and if you double him, he can pass the ball out. So I think if the Spurs offense ever stalls, I think it's good for them to get the ball down to Duncan and have that option.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the other thing that the Spurs is, I mean, I don't know how much of an adjustment, but you need to make your free throws. Game three wasn't a factor, but game 2 they lost because they missed 4 free throws at the end of the fourth quarter. And like last year, it was a game 6. They couldn't hit the free throws at the end of the game also, and that's how the Heat were able to tie it up. And the Spurs are the best free throw shooting team in the NBA. And that's what really surprises me. Like, they're a good free throw shooting team, and just sometimes in the clutch they don't make free throws. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and there's really no way to explain that. Like, if you don't hit your open shots, if you don't hit your free throws, those are opportunities you're given, and you have to take advantage. Just like the Heat can't make their open shots, the Spurs have to do the same thing at the free throw line. Tim Duncan, he has that like free throw. It goes straight to the front of the rim, and sometimes it creeps just over and goes in. But if it doesn't, it just clanks the front of the rim. It's really ugly. It has like that line.
Yeah, he like throws it at the rim. It's like line drive. I want to see Tim Duncan take like another bank shot, like his good old day Tim Duncan. You don't see him like do that anymore. It was just he's kind of moved into like a center position for definitely for this series because they that's an advantage for them. But like I missed that little like bank shot.
Yeah, you're right. He never takes that shot anymore. I think part of it is that they're working Duncan off the pick and roll more instead of just straight posting him and him turning around and deciding whether he's going to drive or post up or hit that bank shot. They're using him off the pick and roll, and I think that's good because it gets him moving. It gets the rest of the defense moving, and then if they pass it to him in the post, he can either pass it out from there or he can post up. Right.
And then for the Heat, I think one of the biggest adjustment for them is other than hitting their open shots is on the defensive side. Mm-hmm. And they've been kind of exposed at times in game 1 and game 3 where the Spurs run very like simple plays, just like a quick pick and roll, and they just don't have the size to prevent like an inside shot. And then in game 3 they couldn't guard the perimeter well. So I think they really need to step up their pick and roll defense, and they need to get back in transition in order to stop giving the Spurs easy shots.
Yeah, I think one thing they can do on the pick and roll is they could be more aggressive on the ball handler. So if you have like Tony Parker and somebody else letting the pick like Duncan or whoever it is, push Tony Parker back out to half court and get arms in his face so he can't lob that ball over to the next player like Duncan. Like, be aggressive, because in game one, at least, that led to a lot of turnovers when they're aggressive on the pick and roll, especially LeBron. Like, he has such a big wingspan. He's so quick that if they push offensive players out or guys that aren't great ball handlers, I think you can force some turnovers there. The only problem with that is if Tony Parker does get that release, then you're 4-on-3 and the Spurs are going to take advantage. But they have to find some way to play better defense.
Yeah, and I think the two things. The one thing was what you said. Like in game one, they got killed on the pick and roll, but there were some plays where either Bosh or LeBron got over and kind of disrupted it and caused a turnover. The other thing that they were doing is off the ball. LeBron and Wade did this where they would jam the cutter basically. They would get in the cutter's way and like prevent them from getting all the way to the basket. I mean, so I think those two things they can do that, and what that happens is like if Parker does get around that second guy, get the pass off, then you have a post-up situation where Duncan or Splitter, which isn't like great, but it's better than a layup. So I think those are, they really have to, you know, since they're so small, they have to try extra hard in trying to defend that pick and roll. They just don't have that guy in the middle who can just spread out and be like, okay, I'm guarding the paint.
Right. And like with the Spurs, it's like no matter how many defensive adjustments you make, they're going to score their points, but at least you can try to limit them, maybe play a little bit more physical, because they're so free-flowing. Like their passes are so easy, you have to get your hands in the passing lane, or you have to knock the ball away. You have to do something to force turnovers.
You got Mario Chalmers out there to elbow some people.
Yeah, you need more. Dude, that actually worked. He elbows Tony Parker. Tony Parker goes down.
Both free throws.
And misses both free throws. You know, so maybe you got to elbow a guy or something.
Okay, two things. Just two quick comments, non-basketball related. Well, related, but not. I don't like seeing. Okay, watching Tony Parker like after he falls down or something. It's like, come on, dude, just get up. Like, just get up. And then what?
Elbowed in the stomach, but yeah.
No, but then like watching Dwayne Wade flopping and like complaining and all that stuff. Those two just need to play basketball. Like.
Yeah, just get up. I know you got to get up or stop complaining to the refs for sure. It is annoying.
There's this internet trend, hashtag called Parkering, where people just take pictures like lying down like this in front of different things, like. And I thought it was pretty funny. So yeah, they just need to like. I think the Miami needs to be more physical, and that's one thing. They have the advantage, and they need to do that. So.
What do you think LeBron has to do anything differently? Like, is there something that he has to improve upon? Has he been doing everything he can?
Don't turn it over. I don't know. I feel like he's been doing a lot for the Heat right now. I think that's it. He's like, if you just disregard their turnovers a bit, like he's playing amazing. Like he's hitting all these jump shots, which is supposed to be the weak point of his game. So, you know, it's like I think that's the only thing you can really do. And beyond that, it's up to the rest of the team to really step up.
Yeah, I think they have to be a little bit stronger with the ball. But yeah, LeBron, I mean, I think Kawhi Leonard's defense on him, at least through the last 3 quarters of that game, were good. But the Heat really need other guys to step up. Wade has played like pretty well. I don't think sometimes I feel like he disappears, and that's just because the Spurs put up so many points that the Heat really don't have a chance to do anything. But I think Wade has played pretty well. Bosh, he's been kind of up and down.
I think Wade should change his nickname from Flash to Flashes because he only shows up in Flashes.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good one.
Yeah. But Bosh is like, I think Bosh has had a good series. He's been doing what he's supposed to do. I don't know what I guess he could be more aggressive, but then him being more aggressive kind of takes away from the bigger offensive picture. Mm-hmm. But I think so. It's really, and the other thing is like the Heat role players other than Rashard Lewis haven't really done much. Ray Allen had a good game 1, but then I thought they would play better, and they haven't.
Yeah, I think we both agree that the big 3 have kind of done their job, or they've done what they can, but they really need the role players to step up. And that's the danger when you have a team that relies more on its stars versus a team that's relying on the entire team. I mean, like, somebody has to step up, whether it's Chalmers, whether it's Norris Cole. We haven't seen Battier. Rashard Lewis has been okay. Ray Allen needs to hit more shots. I mean, they just don't have that many more options other than those 3. But I think we both also agree that the main adjustment that needs to be made is defensively. Like, they haven't played that badly offensively.
Absolutely. The other thing, one quick thought, the Spurs in Game 2, uh, they lost, and I think one of the big reasons was they were out rebounded by the Heat. Like if you're the Spurs, you can't get out rebounded by the Heat. I don't think that's just something you can let happen because the Heat just don't rebound well because they're not big, and that's one advantage that you have, which is the size. You really need to play to that advantage.
Yeah, I mean, if the Spurs are obviously the bigger team, if the Heat are going to go small, yeah, like you said, if you get out rebounded, then it's basically over right there because they shouldn't be out rebounding you if they're going to go that small.
Yeah. All right. You want to make some predictions? Anything else you want to talk about?
No, we can make predictions.
All right. We want to do each game. What do you want to?
Well, what do you think about Game 4?
I think the Heat are gonna win. I don't think like they're not gonna just lose two in a row at home. It's like they know what to do to beat the Spurs. I think it's just a matter of in the moment, that day, that game, what their mindset is like. If they're aggressive, I think the Heat can outplay the Spurs. I don't think it's necessarily like Spurs are better than the Heat or anything. I think when the Heat are playing their best, they can beat the Spurs.
Yeah, and I think the Heat definitely have to get off to a better start because you can't be playing from behind every single game. If you play from behind, yes, you can make a comeback like in the fourth quarter, but you don't want to have to try to do that every game. So especially defensively, they have to be much more, I guess, aggressive, or they just have to be better. And I think they're going to win Game 4 too, just because that's kind of the pattern. It's like the Heat lose and then they come back and win, and they keep doing that. So I think they're going to win Game 4 too.
Yeah. I think they have to also sometimes it seems like they're caught in between like focusing on defense or focusing on offense. I think they have to just commit at some points. Like if they're down, they just got to be more aggressive. And if they're like I think the Heat play better when it seems like they're aggressive on either one end or the other end of the floor. So, and I don't think like all the time they just kind of forget about both parts of the game sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Spurs, their focus, like, I don't think they're a great defensive team, but they have that offense to fall back to, so they kind of focus on one side of the court and hope it works on the other side. I don't know if the Heat, are we saying that they should be focusing on defense then, basically?
Yeah, but I also think, like, if you're not going to focus on defense, at least be aggressive on offense.
Yeah, and it's not as easy for them because they move the ball around, but they have to rely on, like, LeBron doing most of the work. So, yeah, I mean, I think they should focus defensively.
So, do you think this is not finals related, but Stephen A. said Carmelo and LeBron might team up. What are your quick thoughts on that?
What I heard was that Carmelo could possibly come to the Heat, and then everyone re-signs, and they instead of like earning the max, they each earn like $12 million. So now you have LeBron, Carmelo, Bosh, and Wade.
Dude, that's not fair. I don't want that to happen.
That would be insane, and like that has never happened because you don't usually see so many guys willing to take a pay cut. But like if they really care about winning, then I mean, I guess that's possible. I don't think that's going to happen though.
I think the closest thing that came to it was, and this isn't even close, was the Lakers when they had Gary Payton and Karl Malone.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But like, how is any team going to beat them?
I don't think any team could beat them if they have those four. I don't think it'd even be possible.
If any team could, it would be the Spurs. But yeah.
Yeah, actually, yeah. If there were any team, it could be the Spurs. But I think that team would definitely win the championship. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think Carmelo in New York, he makes the most money in New York. He'd have to take a huge paycheck to go anywhere else. I think he's definitely going to test free agency, like he's going to opt out. And because he's 30 now, I think, and he's seen LeBron go to what? This is his fifth finals, and he wants to go deep into the postseason. So I think him and both Kevin Love, they're both going to be looking to go to teams so they can win. I mean, Carmelo did the New York thing, the big city thing. He's earned a lot of money, but I think now he wants to win. And he wants his legacy to be one of a champion, not just a really good scorer who never, won a championship.
Yeah, I think so. I think he will test it, but I think in the end I think he might stay in New York. I don't know why. Like, I just don't see where he's going to go to get that. Like, I guess the Bulls.
Bulls, man, the
I
Bulls.
know the Bulls, but like for some reason, free agents just don't come to the Bulls. Like there have been so many chances before for Bulls to get big players, and they've just been no one. They just don't come here. Like it makes sense basketball wise because they have like, but there must be something. Like, is it the weather? Is it like what is it?
I think part of it is the weather. The Bulls are stingy. They're not willing to like go into a luxury tax. I don't know what it is. I think was it 2010 when LeBron signed with the Heat.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought that year either LeBron, Bosh, or Wade. I thought one of them was going to come, and then the Bulls end up with Boozer as their prize, and they're about to amnesty. It's like, are you serious? We can't get anyone. So I'm hoping that like a Kevin Love. I don't know if they can get Carmelo. Like I'm hoping another superstar is willing to come because yeah, even in 2000 they missed out on Grant Hill. They missed out on Tracy McGrady. Like Tracy McGrady, they missed out on. They were kind of close to getting Kobe when he wanted to leave the Lakers.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. That was just like a kind of like a decoy to get the Lakers to like trade Shaq.
yeah, yeah, it was. But they can never sign like a big free agent. So I'm hoping that changes.
If they get
Um,
him, they're gonna contend for the East, and they're gonna be like thrown in the mix of the. They're gonna be one of the three teams, Miami, Spurs, and then I think the Bulls will be right up there with them.
yeah, they just need a healthy Rose. It sucks that he's been gone the last 2 years because 2 years ago I legitimately think they could have won the championship, and then Rose gets hurt versus the Sixers. That's over. This year, a lot of people were predicting they would beat Miami too, and then Rose gets hurt. So
Dude,
I think that Amnesty Boozer, in order to get a guy like Carmelo or Kevin Love, they'd have to get rid of Gibson. They'd have to get rid of Butler. They couldn't sign Mirotic. They'd have to do all this stuff to do that. But I don't know. It's
I mean,
possible.
as long as I think you need Noah and a healthy Rose, and then if you add someone like Carmelo, you have a solid, like a good core.
Yeah, like those three are enough right there, and then you just fill in pieces around them, and then
Somehow we end up talking about the Bulls.
because the Bulls are the greatest team in the history of the NBA. Come on, man.
Yes, yes, the Bulls are the greatest team in the history of the NBA. Okay, back to the current two greatest teams in the current of the NBA.
Oh
Yeah,
wait, okay, yeah, I forgot about these two teams.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, dude, come on. Like these are great games, and the I've just been enjoying watching all of them, and I feel like it's gonna go to seven, and I really hope it goes to seven because this has been so exciting. So let's see, we're on game four. We both say the Heat.
we both say the Heat.
Game five.
Game five. I mean, I think it's going to be a back and forth thing. I think the Spurs are going to be back at home, and I think the Spurs will take it.
Yeah, Spurs. Yeah, I think it's gonna alternate from here, and I think
Yeah.
Spurs are gonna win game seven.
Yeah, so we both are sticking with our prediction of Spurs in seven.
It's been
Close
like
period.
one of those series is like you knew what was gonna happen and it happened, but then you're still excited about it because it was like everyone's playing so well and not everyone like the games are played so well and it's all exciting and stuff. So
Yeah, it's still good basketball no matter what. So
yeah, and there's gonna be a good few weeks in basketball and World Cup.
World
So
Cup. So any World Cup predictions? I haven't been up on my soccer lately.
USA, USA, USA.
USA. Did you hear like Klinsman? Like again, he said he doesn't think that the U.S. has a realistic opportunity of winning the World Cup. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, yeah, I heard that. I think he's doing it for like media expectations and stuff. But come on, like if you're playing in the World Cup and you don't think you can win the World Cup, then why even play?
Well, like I think you can think that you're not going to win the World Cup. I think all of us think that the U.S. isn't going to win the World Cup, especially with their opening group. I think it's Germany, Ghana, and Portugal. So two definitely better teams. But like you can, as a coach, you can realistically think in your head, okay, we don't have a chance to win the World Cup. But you don't have to actually tell reporters that. Like that's not your job as a head coach.
I think it's the opposite. I think in his head he thinks they can get out of the group. I know it's a group of death, but I'm relying on Portugal choking like they, historically do.
Hmm.
And I think Germany and I think US is gonna. I mean, definitely Germany is gonna get out of the group, and I'm gonna say US gets out of the group.
Yeah, the U.S. could possibly beat Portugal. I mean, Portugal's a better team, but I don't think they're that much better. Ronaldo, Cristiano Ronaldo, obviously he can eat them up alive like himself. But
Yeah.
I don't know anything about this U.S. team. Like no Landon Donovan. I don't even know who the players really are.
Yeah, I don't know them that much either. I just know like we have like I I mean, our biggest issue is defense. I think we watched that friendly the other day, and they're moving the ball, but they're also letting
Yeah.
Turkey move the ball on them. Like, so it's I think they really have to shore up that defensive line. I don't know. We'll see. I'm just excited to watch, man. It's gonna be.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna
Maybe
be
we
fun.
can do like a World Cup pod at some point.
Yeah, yeah, we could definitely do that.
All right. So
Ideas
I
for
think what?
nothing. I was just gonna say idea for a future podcast.
Yeah, we'll do it. All right. I think that's all we have for episode 2. We'll come back at some. We'll try to come back. Another one before the finals. Let's try to do one before Game 7.
Yeah, we'll do one before Game 7. It
Yeah.
will. That is if it goes to Game 7. We're
Let's
automatically
go to Game
assuming it's
7.
gonna go
Let's
to
go
Game
to Game
7.
7.
We'll do one before the end of the series, and we're both kind of hoping it goes to Game 7 just because it's such a fun series to
You know
watch.
why it's gonna go to 7? Because we
Why?
predict.
Because we predicted it, and we're the men in polos, so
Exactly.
we know what we're doing.
All right. Well, so we'll see you then. Keep watching the finals. Watch the World Cup. Have a good time. Peace.
Yep. See ya.